Pretty much every day we're told there's no money for improving the infrastructure of our own country. We're told there's no money for new schools or maybe new hospitals or even to address the housing crisis in the UK at the moment. But yet suddenly money just appears out of nowhere, and we're talking billions of pounds here to go and fund wars in other countries. It's like the people funding the system, like me, you, and everybody else, the everyday worker, we're like the last priority. We're an afterthought to the government's plans. So instead of rebuilding the roads or investing in the communities, our taxes are being used to help destroy other countries and its people, and that includes children. And it's no wonder people have lost faith in the system when your hard-earned money goes to war instead of improving the lives of our own citizens and infrastructures. So that's when you know the system is broken and we're being used. And let's not forget that war is an actual racket, and it's just a way of transferring wealth around the world, and that makes me sick. So as we all know, the UK has a massive issue with illegal immigration at the moment, and it's been going on for a long time, and the government are giving a lot of our hotel rooms, housing, and basically resources to helping these people out. While people in the UK struggling to pay their rent or find suitable housing or even jobs, these resources are being stretched thinly and passed on to these illegal immigrants. And this is not about me hating, because I'm not a hater. It's just about having a fair system where the citizens of the UK are looked after before illegal immigrants. It just seems like the system bends over backwards to accommodate these people, while the people of this country are pretty much forgotten about. And I swear to God that there must be some people in government that are actually profiting from allowing these illegals in. I just can't see why they would keep overlooking it. It does definitely seem like society has lost its calm and its demure since COVID-19. You pretty much can't sit on public transport anymore, whether that's in the UK or around the world, without having your head on a swivel. And we all know what I'm talking about. It seems like everybody's on edge, everybody's angry, and there's no trust left between strangers out in public. It seems like we've become this nation of pressure cookers that just is ready to explode because we're all pissed off. We had the COVID lockdowns, which made people angry. We've had the illegal immigration, and now we've got talks about the digital ID in the UK. It seems like people's mental health has gone to shit, but instead of trying to help themselves, I think a lot of people in England now, they're numbing themselves with drugs. I mean, the cocaine industry in the UK now is rife. So you've got cocaine, you've got alcohol. It's almost like it's become normalised now. Like you can order cocaine and have it delivered faster than a pizza now. And that's crazy, absolute crazy. I don't care what people say. Like, drugs and excessive alcohol do make your life suck. They do, so tell me I'm wrong. So since COVID-19, it also seems like, the rich are getting richer at the expense of everybody else, people like me and you. So, while most people are grinding away in jobs that probably aren't paying them much, or even working multiple jobs just to survive, the ultra rich just keep getting richer. It almost seems like every time there's a crisis, the rich get richer. Just look at COVID. And we, the ordinary taxpayer, is having to pay the price. We had a story in the UK about a baroness that was a peer in the Houses of Parliament, and because she had connections in the government, she was able to sell millions and millions of pounds worth of dodgy PPE just because she knew somebody in Parliament. And that was quite a high-profile story, so it just goes to show it's not what you know in this world anymore, it's who you know, and that's definitely rife in the UK. It seems like the gap between the classes is definitely expanding now. I'm not sure if there's actually even a middle class anymore because of inflation and the erosion of people's earning and spending power. But it definitely seems like there's a gap widening in society. So I don't actually think the system is broken, well, not for rich people. It's actually working very well for them as designed. And I think until we wake up and stop having our heads buried in our phones, we will just keep blaming each other for all the problems in the world without actually pointing the finger at the real enemies. And I think that's why our lives suck so much, because we're not prepared to do anything about it. You know what? And we're all happy to shame each other for trivial things like not wearing a mask during COVID, or you're anti-vax or you're vax. We're all just happy to blame each other, and that's a very, very good distraction technique from governments around the world because it means they can get away with whatever they want. It's great. So most women today are chasing the 666 Chad, as we all know. So he's got to be 6 foot tall, six-figure salary, 6 inch, and a six pack. But the brutal truth is, these men are absolutely rare in society. And guess what? You know what? These men pretty much don't need to settle down. So that leaves a lot of women frustrated, maybe lonely, and maybe resentful because their standards are now built on a fantasy sold to them on social media. And it also seems like normal, ordinary men, which is pretty much like 80% of the global population, are overlooked or ignored. So then that leaves everybody unhappy and nobody wins. A lot of men out there today are feeling invisible. They feel like they have no purpose. They feel like they don't have a chance in life because of the cost of everything now and because of women's high expectations. So we all know that a lot of men are turning to porn now or OnlyFans because that's the only attention they can probably get from women. And the rejection that many men feel probably drives them into isolation, addiction to porn, OnlyFans, like we said, drugs, alcohol, and eventual shame. But I imagine if you're addicted to these things, you probably feel worse and you probably feel more disconnected and hopeless. So it's just a vicious cycle that's destroying men's confidence and self-worth. And you know what? Let's have it right. A man's biological purpose on this planet is to find a mate, have sex, and have children. But for many men, that's not a reality anymore. So if a man can't look like Chad or even get a six-figure salary in today's broken economy, then most women won't even touch him with a barge pole. And if a man can't achieve that purpose, then is there any wonder why a lot of young men are checking out of society? Because they actually must be thinking, what is the point? Owning a home used to be the dream of many people, but it just seems like now it's a fantasy for many people. Since COVID, house prices have gone through the roof, as we all know. Wages have stagnated or decreased, or people can no longer find jobs. Wannabe first-time buyers are probably stuck renting for longer than they thought because they can't save up for a deposit. So I think life for a lot of people now is more... It's not about building a life. It's more about surviving on a week-to-week basis or even a day-to-day basis. And I believe that every man should be able to own his own home, call it his castle, and give him somewhere where he's got the opportunity to bring up his own family. I don't think men should live like animals in, like these 10-bedroom HMOs or bed shares, house shares, whatever you call them. I think that at some point has got to influence your self-respect. And yeah, I get it that, when we're younger, we have to do that because we're not on a decent salary. But I think in today's economy, people in their 30s, 40s, maybe 50s are having to do that. And that must have an effect on your self-esteem and self-worth. And come on, what woman is going to look at a man if he's sharing with 10 other people? And that's got to have... it's got to make a man feel shameful because he can't achieve what other people in society can. So I do believe that in the UK, if you're a single working person, you're pretty much forgotten about with no help. And some people might say, well, why should they get any help? But when you've got people who don't work or they want to work the system for their own benefit, or even you've got the illegal immigrants coming, taking a lot of the housing stock up, I think people have got a right to be pissed off. So let's have it right. Social media to me is, most of it is shit on there. And how many times have you looked on social media and saw somebody's life and it's made you feel bad in some respects? It might be the perfect body, the perfect holiday, or the perfect relationship. And then you look at your own life and you think, why don't I have that? So yeah, it's bound to make you feel bad. And I think it can crush your spirit if you're feeling down about life anyway. You've got men comparing themselves to these chiseled influencers, and they probably look at that and think, I can never measure up to that. You've got these 21-year-old crypto bros saying, trust me, bro, buy my course and I'll make you rich. But I think it's all fake, or it's definitely some dodgy shit out there. to give you the illusion that you can be rich if you pay somebody to tell you how to be rich. So I think it's just a constant loop of self-hate and doubt about your own life. And the more you scroll, the more fakeness you absorb, and the more you feel like a loser. So that's another reason why I think social media can make your life suck. Society is nuts nowadays. You know, we've got people becoming rich and famous for nonsense. And this is not about jealousy. We've got people on the internet who are becoming millionaires for doing meaningless shit. You know, like people that have sex with 1,000 men in one day, or say a meme on a video recording about a sexual act. So to me, it sends a message into society that integrity doesn't matter anymore, and it's all about attention. You know, meanwhile, hardworking people are barely scraping by, doing Deliveroo or other jobs that they hate doing, just to scrape by and try and make it in the world. I think the world is upside down now, where values pretty much don't mean anything. More and more people are feeling left behind in life, certainly since COVID-19 and the ensuing lockdowns. So those lockdowns didn't just pause life, they stole years off people. And think about all the lost relationships you might have had at the time. You know, we can't get that back. So while ordinary people like me and you were losing businesses, wealth, money, and our lives, you know, the rich were getting richer. So while our lives were sucking, their lives were getting better. So I know a lot of people were feeling left behind after COVID-19, and I was one of those people. You know, we had the lockdowns, which made people angry. It made people lose their jobs. Well, some people, a lot of people lost friendships and relationships, which they may never get back. Now, well, maybe some people are happy about that, who knows? But these are people's lives that were destroyed because the government wanted to lock down and set people back in life. So while we were all losing businesses, our mental health and friendships and family, the political class were laughing at you. And they were getting richer at the same time, and they were making our lives suck. And I think that loss eats away at a lot of people, because humans don't like to lose things in life because we know it's hard to get it back. I imagine a lot of people's savings were depleted during COVID, and I know debt levels probably rose to try and get people's lives back on tracks and to keep people's heads above water. So we've got the rising cost of living, or the cost of living crisis that is affecting every country around the world. You know, we've got the food, rents, mortgages, the cost of fuel. They've all gone through the roof, and people are feeling the pain now. I imagine people are feeling trapped. They're feeling stressed because they're having to find extra money to do the same things they were doing before COVID. And they're probably terrified about the future. I mean, fuck me, I'm scared about the future as well. It seems like everybody's broke in society now. People's security is no longer here. And it feels like people are walking this, you know, financial tightrope where one bad life event can send people into a bankruptcy or just a not very good financial situation. And how can people be the best versions of themselves when they're constantly worried about having to find extra money in this broken economy? You know, people might have to work like 2 or 3 jobs just to maintain a good standard of living. And how can you be the best version of yourself if you're having to work all the hours under the sun? You know, you pretty much don't have time for anything else to be the best version of yourself and make your life better. We've now got the rising retirement age in the UK. I imagine by the time I retire, it might be about 71 or 72 years old. You know, the dream of retiring at 65 and enjoying the last few, maybe 20 years of your life, if you're lucky, to enjoy it. But now that's been taken away from people. People have got less savings. People might not have a house to retire in the future. And it's pretty much heartbreaking to think that you've worked all your life and now the goalposts keep changing. And that's not good. And guess what? You know, if the government didn't waste money, we'll go back to the war situation, the illegal immigrants. If they didn't waste that money, they could pump that money into giving people a better future when they retire. So they're not having to sit there in the cold wondering whether they can afford to put the heating on or even go food shopping. So let's have it right. Working until death actually does suck, and nobody wants that. People are working multiple jobs now just to survive. This is not even about thriving, it's just about surviving. I don't know, you know, I juggle one 9 to 5 and a YouTube unpaid job. And I find it difficult. I imagine if you had 2 or 3 jobs, you'd find it hard to juggle family life, your fitness, or even pursue new hobbies that you like to improve your life. I imagine it would drain your energy and kill your motivation to want to do anything else outside of work. I don't think you should have to work 2 or 3 jobs in this economy just to get on in life. Like, what happened to the system? Where did it go wrong? Like I said, I work one 9 to 5 job, which is 40 hours a week, but I work longer than that. I'm doing this part-time YouTube thing. I probably do 20 hours a week on this. But knowing that I had to come home and go and clock into another job, that would just piss me off, people, big time. I think today we live in a short-term culture and with a lot of instability. We live in a disposable world. You're disposable. Your job is disposable. Our relationships with people are disposable. And look at our attention span. It's pretty much non-existent now. You can be replaced in a relationship at the drop of a hat or just one swipe on a dating app. Your job can be taken overnight if your company decides to downsize or whatever. We've now got the threat of AI, which may or may not take your job in the future, but I can guarantee it probably will. You know what, as humans, we crave stability, but I think nowadays society is just rewarding short-term instant gratification. It's almost like we live in a society of FOMO, fear of missing out. You get into a relationship and then one of the people in that relationship gets FOMO or thinks the grass is greener, and the first sign of any trouble, they jump to somebody else. And how can people have any stability or be able to build something for the future, as in 2 people working together in a relationship to get that nice house and have a better life together, if people have got FOMO because they always think there's something better out there? It almost seems like governments are very good at creating a state of fear, and they always create a feeling of instability, like you wake up and nothing's safe. And I believe they do this. Whether it's true or not, I believe they do this to keep everybody on that hamster wheel of life. But no wonder people feel lost and disillusioned with life when they're just having to try to run on that constant treadmill, maybe doing things they actually don't want to do just to keep a roof over their heads. And it feels like everybody's stuck in survival mode and there's no time to form real connections with people. Everything seems very robotic now. So we actually think that a lot of people's lives suck because they're happy being comfortable and they're unwilling to unfuck their lives. And I get it, I've been there in the past before. You can't do much about the government's actions or their reckless spending of our taxpayer money or what they do. But you have the power to look at your own life and stop moaning about your circumstances. You never get anywhere in life by moaning. You just got to take action and move forward. I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry about 15 years ago, roughly, and I used to call on the local GP practices, and I got chatting to a few of them, and they tell you about these people that used to come in with depression. Well, that's what the patient was saying, I'm depressed. But then when the doctor asked them a few questions, it just turns out that people have got, shit life syndrome. And it's interesting because when we think we're sad, well, I think sadness and depression are 2 different things, but when we think we're depressed, I don't believe it. But for the majority of people, I just believe it's because we create these shit lives for ourselves. It seems like a lot of people are happy to blame the government for how bad their lives are. And I do think that's true, otherwise I wouldn't have made this video. But we do have a lot of power in terms of what we consume, what food we put into our bodies. We've got a control over how much alcohol we drink or whether we take drugs or not, or the people that we choose to be in our lives, or the woman or the man that we choose to be our partner. So there you have it, people. They are just a few of the reasons why I believe life sucks for many, many people out there in the world today. So thank you for listening today, and I'll see you next time.